Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to today's podcast, which we dive deep into the hidden secrets of real estate. I'm joined with my co-host today, the young guns from the Hills District, Kevin Buchanan and Myles White from Manor Real Estate, and they're on track this year in 2021 to write over $2 million in gross commission. So an awesome result. So I thought we'd get the two greats from the Hills District onto today's show and really dive deep into what it looks like doing business in real estate and how us as buyers can position ourselves for the most success. So to kick this off, boys, one of the main questions I get asked quite a lot, and a lot of the general public would agree with me, what is it that real estate agents actually do to deliver a result for clients?
Yeah, so well, I think when it comes for us delivering good results, it comes down to actually servicing the vendor properly. If we don't have a vendor in line with the market and understanding where their headspace is at with where the market's at, to be honest with you, we're not going to get a good result either way. So we need to take on clients that are actually positioning themselves properly in the market, that are in line with the market price. Otherwise, to be honest, it's not going to go anywhere from the very start. When it comes to buyers, I think it probably best to be answered by Myles White. He's my buyer's agent that does a ton of buyer work with us. So Myles, take it away.
Yeah, I think just from a vendor's perspective as well, from the very start, a lot of vendors don't actually know how to get the ball rolling. So one of the very first things you need to do is obviously get an agent out, have an interview with them, see how you feel with them as well, get comfortable with them, make the right choice in an agent as well. And also from there, it begins a process. Okay, signing the agency agreement with that agent or that agency, and then ordering a contract for sale from your solicitor. And those two things go together in order for you to show your property. And then from there, there's photos, there's marketing in terms of online ads on real estate and domain. So there's a complete process. So if someone was trying to do it themselves, it's very difficult. It's very difficult. We're there to make sure that process is absolutely seamless from start to finish, and also to get you that awesome result.
So a lot of the times as agents, you'll post the glamour photos on real estate.com and domain. And sometimes we see those cool videos you do as well, which reality versus online can be quite different. What separates an agent from selling a property versus real estate.com and domain selling the property?
Yeah, I think it comes down to the fact that if you're putting up a property as an actual agent, you're doing a lot more than just putting it on realestate.com. What you see is when vendors decide to sell it themselves, they usually get what's called a selling agency, which just takes photos and they put it on realestate.com and domain.com for them. They then receive the calls. But as an owner, you don't have a skill set in negotiating. You're pretty much just an order taker taking offers. The reason why owners will actually decide to take on an agent, and it's obviously prolific throughout Australia, pretty much no one is selling properties themselves, is we're here to actually negotiate on the part of the vendor and actually drive a result that's there for them, and creating a sense of competition. Something that can't really be done as an owner because you haven't been in that position before. And we obviously know the legalities around contracts and what have you. As an owner, you're not going to understand what the legalities of contracts, what a settlement term is, what a cooling off period is, what right deposits are. You don't know the laws of property, where as an agent, we've been doing this for years. We've had to undertake a full license course to actually understand the laws of property. And that's what we're here to do, is explain that, run them through that process, get them onto the market and get them sold.
And not only that, it is a full-time job as well. So every day we're handling inquiries for the property. So if someone was trying to do that by themselves, I could imagine it would be very hard, on top of their normal work life or their work and home life as well.
For sure. So let's say you've got into a property, you've done a market appraisal, or someone's brought you in to list their property. What does the process look like from start to finish? So sign up an agency agreement to you selling the property and settlement date. What's that process look like for a buyer and also a seller?
Okay, so I'll explain the selling point of view. As a seller, when you list the property with us, once paperwork's all done, we do a few things before we actually get it online. First, we get a pest and building report done for a couple of reasons. One's to make sure and actually understand and ascertain if there's anything wrong with the property. So if there's a major defect or there's been past or present termite damage, we now understand that it's actually there, something that may not have been aware of previously. We then can rectify that issue before it comes to market. The second thing is, if we get that pest and building report done, by the time we come to market, the buyers are actually more confident in offering on a property. Once buyers go to properties, if they're offering on a property which doesn't have it done, they're actually going to be a little bit more cautious on it, and they're going to take a bit more of a step back and probably not offer as strong of a price. So our recommendation is, we always recommend our owners to first get that pest and building report done. Once that pest and building report's been finalised, we then move across to getting all the marketing material done. So first step's getting the photos, we get floor plan and a site plan. We then have a copywriter write the text and advertisement text. Now, the way we process a sale is very different to most agents. Most agents will then just whack it straight onto realestate.com and domain.com from the start. Before we do any sort of advertising online, we run what's called an off-market inspection first. And an off-market inspection is essentially bringing buyers through before it hits the market. We do this for two main reasons. First main reason is to actually understand what the property's worth. Because here's the deal, you can invite 10 agents through the property, you're probably going to get a few different prices. Some will tell you a high price, maybe to win business. Some will tell you a low price to maybe make it an easy sale for themselves, and some tell you around the middle. To be honest with you, it doesn't matter a whole lot what we think it's worth, the other agents or the owners, because we're not buying the house. So first reason we do the off market is to understand what the property is actually worth. So by the time, if we don't sell off market, when we do launch to the online portals like real estate and domain.com, we're priced at the right price point. The second reason is to see if someone's actually in a position to put forward a very strong offer before it hits the market. So for example, we sold a property at 21 Woodstream Crescent in Kellyville earlier in the year. The owners were after a particular price in the early twos. We had a buyer come through that was very emotional about it, ended up paying in the mid twos for the property. The owner said, hey, look, there's probably no reason to actually take it to the market. So they ended up selling it prior. So if we don't sell off market, we're then coming to the market. Usually at the moment, we're running about 80% auction campaigns, 20% private treaty. At the moment, obviously, pretty much the whole of the city marketplace is, as you'd probably know, is mainly auction. So we would launch for what's called a 3-week auction campaign. So we'd run 2 weeks of open homes. So a midweek, usually a Thursday around 6 to 6:30, and a Saturday around 12 to 12:30, or a time slot that suits the owner for 2 weekends. The third week would run another midweek. And then now we've just moved across from online back to on-site now that the restrictions have eased with COVID. Then we'll do another open home on the third week, half an hour before the auction, run the auction, get it sold, and then you enter into a settlement period. The standard settlement period in New South Wales is usually around 6 weeks. It's also not uncommon at the moment in current conditions to have extended periods up to 3 months, maybe even longer. Once that settles, obviously we hand over the keys and property gets handed over.
So why do you have an extended settlement period at the moment?
Yeah, so we sold 13 houses last month. Of the 13, I think 10 of them were on 3 or 4 month settlements. Now, at the moment, the reason why we're suggesting a lot of these owners to actually get these long settlements, they haven't found anything. The worst position an owner could be in is have a 6-week settlement, sell, and then they're pressured into buying something that they may not necessarily want. So what we're doing is we're suggesting, hey, look, if you haven't found something yet, probably get that 3 to 4 month settlement, especially at the end of the year when you're cutting it so fine to Christmas anyways. So that 3 month period, you're bringing in yourself into January, February, March settlement periods, which gives you enough time. You can spend your last Christmas in the house, plus have enough time, because from about the middle of December to middle of January, you don't really have much stock hit the market, and you're not really going to have much to choose from. So the suggestion is, at the moment, have that long settlement period, find out where you're going. And to be honest with you, most buyers are going to be pretty comfortable with it, because they've either got a house to sell as well, or alternatively, they might be in a long lease, and to cancel that lease you're going to have break lease fees as well.
And that's a point what you've just said, Kevin, is something we can negotiate as the buyer's agent. What we typically do is negotiate on terms other than price, and extending a settlement can be a way to meet the vendor's needs and for us to get a sharper price than someone who's got a good price but wants a 6-week settlement and it doesn't match the vendor's timeline.
Definitely.
An interesting point you touched on when you're establishing what a value of a property is going to be when you do your off-market campaigns. Something I'm hearing from a lot of buyers at the moment, particularly over the last 12 months, is agents are guiding quite low and then properties sell well above that range. Tell me what the go is with that process.
Well, basically from the word go, it might seem like, we're sort of doctoring the numbers there a little bit, but at the end of the day, that feedback that comes from the buyers, that is true feedback at the end of the day. So like I said to you before in our previous podcast, with a buyer, you're not going to go in and say, I think it's worth 3 mil when it's probably worth 2 mil. But you're not going to go and shoot yourself in the foot. You're definitely not going to do that. So buyers say to us, when we say, look, what do you think it's worth? They actually say, I think it's probably worth around that, 2 mil mark, something around there. So they're very conservative with their quoting because at the end of the day, if they show their cards to us, and buyers are very, very smart these days. They're very, very intelligent. They're doing their research. They know how to play the real estate game. And they're coming to us. They're giving us what they think it's worth. And we know more than likely that they've got a little bit more in their pocket. So at the end of the day, they want to get it for as little as possible. We want to sell it for as much as possible. But that true feedback, that is the true feedback at the end of the day. So they'll come through, I reckon it's worth around that 2 mil. We'll work out, say for example, 10 buyers come through, say 2 mil, 1.9, 2.1, that average will be probably that 2 mil mark. And that's what we'll quote. We'll say, look, the buyer's feedback has been 2 mil, or the price or the auction guide will be 2 mil.
Even though they're actually not necessarily thinking they'll pay 2 mil. So
that's right.
I actually blame the buyers for this one.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You hear that, buyers? When you're going to a property, make sure you're telling them the low price.
But yeah, look, I think when it comes down to, I know a lot of buyers are starting to get quite frustrated because we hear it ourselves where they're saying, hey, look, you're quoting 2 million and then it's selling for 2.3, 2.4. Well, buyers also need to understand that we're just basing it based on what we've been given. So if we're being given $2 million price feedback, we're not going to go price it at 2.3 because then what's happening at the moment as well, buyers' mindset is they're adding 10% to 15% onto every quote. So if we went out and actually quoted 2.2 to 2.3, even though that's what it may actually be worth, buyers are going to start to think we're asking for 2.5. They're going to think we're overpricing it. They're not even going to turn up to the auction. So it's actually a bit of cat and mouse game. We actually have to price it lower to get them there because if we price it at what it's actually worth, they're probably not even going to turn up to the auction.
For sure. So you've established what the property's value is going to be roughly based on your feedback. What determines you running an off-market campaign, private treaty or at auction, and how can a buyer position themselves for the greatest success in that out of the 3 options?
Yeah, we run off markets for everything before it hits the market, as mentioned, to understand and ascertain the true value before we hit the market. Usually we're not actually selling it off market in today's market conditions unless there's a big offer that comes through. So there's not really too much you can do about it unless you go ahead and put through a big offer to persuade the owners to take it pre-market. At the moment, it's not even really coming up to us. We're still obviously suggesting auction, but most owners, they're in that position where they're seeing the auctions go hundreds of thousands of dollars above reserve. They're seeing it on the media and they're saying, hey, why would I take it to a normal private treaty campaign? They'd rather take it to that auction campaign and give them a chance of selling for a higher price. Now, for me, if I was a buyer looking at an auction campaign to put myself in a good position, one, to be honest with you, I would get, if I wasn't actually if I haven't bought and sold multiple properties in the past, I probably would look to get a buyer's agent because they will understand the mindset and how the process around bidding and buying at an auction. I'd probably try avoid an auction at the moment, especially with how hot the market is. I'd probably try make a play pre-auction. Even like, let's say, for example, you're looking at a $2 million house, it's been quoted at $2 million. Even if you think you're overpaying at 2.1, 2.15, you're seeing it happen all the time where it's selling for 2.2, 2.3. So I would still, like, I know you've done this for a few of your clients recently where you've bought pre-auction. I think that's a smart decision. At the same time, if it goes to auction, I'm of the mindset of I would go hard and fast in the auction. For example, if you've set yourself a limit for $2 million for an auction, I wouldn't sit back and wait. Because once, like, let's say for example, the auction starts at 1.7, goes to 1.75, 1.8, 1.85, 1.9, 1.95, and then starts to have a steamroll and a snowball effect, and it'll go much further past that 2 mil mark. I would usually, if I was buying a property, I'd go hard and fast. I'd probably bid up to 1,980,000 if my budget was 2 million right from the start. Give yourself a little bit of wiggle room. But what that does is it sets out the intention into the marketplace. Hey, if these guys have started at this price point, I wonder how much more they've got. Is there even any point in us bidding? But maybe have a different take on that.
I completely agree, and I think the biggest part of buying at the moment where we're seeing a lot of success is avoiding as much competition and trying to control the negotiation as best we can early on. And I think a lot of that comes through relationships with agents. So, just this week or today, actually, I'm on the phone with an agent this morning about to close a deal prior to auction. We started that at 2.2 million, and now we'll probably close that around 2.35. But if it was to run a full auction campaign, I reckon it would go 2.4.
Yeah, you just don't know.
And that's the thing, you don't know, but the benefit of, even if you do pay even $10,000 or $50,000 more than what it would sell at auction, at least you get that peace of mind where you're able to control the negotiation and get it done. Where, the longer you're out of the marketplace, particularly in the heated market where the growth is around 2% a month. You wait, let's say you miss out on this property at auction because you wanted to save 10,000. Well, in a month's time when you found the property you want to bid on, the market's gone up 2% and it's cost you 100,000 in capital growth. So
exactly.
It's a thing buyers don't necessarily consider at the time. And I think particularly, like I said, in this market, agents are quite reluctant to run online or private treaty sales, but if you can put in a strong off-market offer or buy pre-auction, it's where I see a lot of buyers actually being able to buy. But what's your experience been, particularly at the moment with, the market's quite heated, there's a lot of buyers and limited stock. How are you guys positioning yourselves to get the best result for vendors?
So at the moment, same thing as what I mentioned before, we're running that off market and making sure we're priced right. The biggest mistake I see a lot of agents do, they'll go price a property based on what they think it's worth or what the owners actually want, which may be, let's work on that $2 million example again. If the owner wants $2 million and the agent thinks it's worth $2 million, a lot more inexperienced agents are going in and pricing it at 2 million, which, to be honest, may be the right thing to do. But when it comes down to the end sale price, it is damaging it, because buyers are now, like I said, they're putting on 10% on 15%. They're thinking that you're asking for 2.2, 2.25. They're not. You're going to have much less competition. You're probably going to end up selling under that $2 million mark because you've shot yourself in the foot and overpriced it and not aligned the price. So that's where it becomes really important for us with our owners, is to help them understand, hey, do the off market. I know you want 2 million. The price feedback from the off market has come in at 1.8, 1.9. Don't price it at 2 million, because that's not where the buyers are actually giving out their feedback and not seeing the worth. Price it at 1.8 to 1.9, and it's actually going to gain, instead of having 1 or 2 registered bidders, you're going to have 10. And it's simple supply and demand. More demand for the supply, the higher the price. It's simple. So
let's say you've got 10 buyers on a property, particularly you, Myles, you're dealing with a lot of the buyers and you're the king negotiator to getting maximum dollar. What does a buyer need to do? So when you're grading a buyer, let's say 10 buyers walk through a property, are you categorizing these buyers in, say, warm, cold, hot?
Oh, definitely.
How do you categorize them, and what's your response with buyers at the moment?
Yeah, so first of all, obviously they come through the property. I'd give them a call that same day and I'd say, hey Daniel, it's Myles from Out of Real Estate. You came through this property. I just wanted to see, does it hold any further interest with you? Yes, it does. That's fantastic. Excellent. Tell me a little bit about it. What do you feel about the property? What did you like? What didn't you like? And also, what would you pay for it? Or what do you think it's worth? And I would note all of those details down, and especially that price. And then what I'd do is I'd ask you about your budget and your finances, and I'd go into detail, because a lot of people might think that's, sort of prying into your personal life, but it's very important for us, because we need to know who we're working with. Because if I'm dealing with you, Dan, and you're nowhere near finance ready, like you're nowhere near to either put down a 0.25 or a 10% deposit, it's almost a waste of time for both of us, because you're not ready to go. On a short 3 or 4 week campaign, you're not ready to go. It's a waste of our time. So that's what we do. We categorize everything. And my final question is, what do you think it's worth? And I'll make that note there. What's your budget? What are you working with? You know, can you stretch a little bit if need be for the right home? And then go from there. And I mark all of that down, and then that's how I categorize you. So if you say, yeah, I absolutely love it, Myles, my budget's 2 million, I'd pay 2 million for it, that all gets noted down. I'm going to send the contract to my solicitor, Myles. I've got the pest and build, I'll read over that, I'll put you down as hot. If you say to me, look, Myles, I'm 50-50 at the moment, I'm looking at other properties, you'd probably go in the warm. And then obviously, if you're not interested, you'd be a cold buyer. So that's how we categorize it.
So let's say you're running an auction campaign, you've done your first open, so your week one's done. We now have done the second lot of opens, and that's where a lot of buyers, particularly as buyers agents, we step in to put our offers, particularly we wait a week for you guys to get buyer feedback, and a lot of vendors are quite reluctant to sell prior to auction on the first week. So let's say the second week, a lot of buyer feedbacks come through, and you've got between 3 hot buyers and maybe 4 warm buyers. If I'm trying to close out a deal prior to auction, how are you managing those buyers? Are you thinking there's 7 buyers interested in the property, or are you thinking, look, there's only really 3 true buyers? Let's maybe wrap it up with the 3 hot buyers rather than try and stretch all 7 in one go. What's the thought process there?
We would definitely work those warm buyers as much as we can to try and see to try and sort them out. Okay, are they going cold? Are they interested? What is the actual go? What factors are contributing to them being sitting on the fence or warm, and see if we can convert them either way. And then yes, if it goes to those other 4 turn cold, then we would have a discussion, Kevin and myself, and we'll say, okay, well, we only got these 3 hot parties, that's their budget, that's what they like about it, that's what they're willing to pay for it. Obviously, they might be a bit conservative with their quoting there or their pricing, which we would obviously take into consideration, and we'd make a decision from there.
Yeah, I don't think it really matters if there's 2 or 3 buyers or 20 or 30. If there's one buyer that's head and shoulders above the rest, we're going to sell it pre-auction regardless if there's 20 people interested or not. And if there's only 2 or 3 interested parties, but they're both at that same level, we're going to run it to auction.
What makes a buyer head and shoulders above other buyers? So as a buyer's agent, what we always recommend for our buyers is we're preparing a 66W and sending you a contract, you know, showing that we're serious buyers. We've got finance pre-approved, and we're going to look to negotiate on that property quite strong. What in your eyes makes a buyer head and shoulders above other buyers?
I think just urgency and, like, for example, when we call or when we text you, when we email you, respond. If you're interested in a property, answer my call.
Yeah.
If you don't answer my call, I'm going to move on to the next person.
Yeah.
And if you don't get back to us, there's a very good chance I'm going to sell it to someone else.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is it comes down to price. Like, if there's someone talking $100,000+ more than the rest, we're going to sell a pre-auction to that person. Like, you can have people talking with a 66, but then there's someone that hasn't really displayed all their cards. Because I think a lot of buyers do keep their cards closer to their chest more times than not. But if someone is telling us, like, for example, if we're selling a $2 million property, everyone's sitting around 1.9 to 2 mil, someone gives feedback, hey, I'm interested, around 2.1, 2.2, hey, like, we're going to really delve deep, and then we're going to ask them, would you consider putting that on a contract pre-auction? Yes, I would. Great. Get a 66W ready, and then we're going to go talk to everybody else. Like, we're not going to skip over everybody. We're still going to go back and ask everyone. But if someone is talking 6 figures above everybody else, it's a no-brainer not to try push for a pre-auction offer.
Fantastic. On that note, you as real estate agents, what are your go-to tools in your toolbox to boost the price that we can share with buyers, so when they're coming to negotiate against you, they have got at least some insight as how you guys work?
Oof, I don't know.
Can you tell me some of the tricks of the trade?
Geez, can we reveal this?
Look, I don't think it's really too difficult. Like, the way we operate in terms of differences between us and other agents, the way we're boosting our prices is we just have more access to most agencies. At Manor Real Estate, if you're in the hills, everyone knows us. Like, we sell over 700 houses a year, double our closest competitor. If we need to drive traffic to that property, and this is why sellers decide to use us a lot of the time, we have access to more buyers than anybody else. So if a property is struggling, one of our tools in our toolboxes is, hey, let's actually get on the phone. Let's go call all the other properties that buyers that have missed out, not just in one suburb, but the other surrounding suburbs, and drive more traffic there. Supply and demand again. More demand for the supply, the higher the price. So there's not a whole lot you can do about that. Not a whole lot, unless you're obviously coming through with a stronger offer.
Okay. So let's say you're running a normal online private treaty. I've showed I'm interested in the property, and I give you an offer at say 2 million. What are you doing with my offer to boost the price of that property?
Well, the first question would be, is that your best and final offer? And you would either say yes or no. And then I would probably go into a bit of a conversation to divert the conversation a little bit, take your mind off price, have a chat with you about your personal situation, ask you about the property, and then ask you your budget. And then I'd go into detail about, okay, fair enough, yep. And then, you know, for the right property, would you extend a little bit? And then I'd try and get as much out of you as possible, and then go from there. But it's also very important to remember, if you said to me, Myles, that's my best and final offer, and you refuse to talk to me, I'm going to take it as that. So you could very well miss out on the property. If it's nowhere near where we want to be, you could very well miss out on the property. And you've got more money and you want to go more, you could very well miss out on the property. So there's a very fine line in that there. We do hold the power. But yeah, look, I think just from a buyer's perspective, I think be ready. Know what you're willing to pay. But not only that, and like you said before, if you were going to go, you know, 25, 50K above, you know, what you could afford, or what, you know, you could potentially wanted to pay for it, I think do it. At the end of the day, this is property in New South Wales, property in Sydney. It's going to continue to rise. It always has, it always will.
Yeah, I think that's a really good thing. I sold a house in Virginia Avenue in Buchanan Hills like 10 years ago, and the property was priced at 600, and he ended up paying 630. And he was spewing. He's like, "Oh, I've just overpaid by $30,000." And I said, "Look, don't worry about it. Like, it's Sydney real estate. Property prices double every 10 years. We went back and priced it a few months ago. It got priced back at 1.5 million. So that's what another thing I think buyers need to understand is, even if you think you're overpaying by a little bit, even if you are worried that the market may pull back a little bit for any what reason, if it's a long-term hold over the next 5 to 10 years, I wouldn't actually be worrying about paying 30, 40, 50, 60, 100, even $100,000 more than what you may think it's worth if it's a family home. If it's an investment property, hey, different story. But if it's going to be your primary residence, I wouldn't be stressing about it if it's going to be a long-term hold.
Awesome, guys. Well, I think to wrap everything up in just we've discussed about some of the things buyers can look for. What are some of the biggest mistakes you see buyers make that they should be avoiding when they're buying property?
I think from the word go, and we've said it multiple times today, is be finance ready. Don't muck around. Know what you're looking for. And try and sit down before you go to a home. Do as much research about the area, the home itself, and also get in touch with yourself about what you want in a home. What are your deal breakers? You know, don't come to a home that, you know, you've already seen the photos, you've seen that it's got a pool, and then come there and say, I don't want a pool. That still stumps me to this day. Why people will look at the photos or the floor plan and then come there and criticize something and say, I'm not interested. Well, why did you come?
Yeah.
Really, really do your research. Look at the property. Make a checklist if you have to, and then make a checklist of 10 boxes, and make sure that you've got your must-haves, and then the rest, you could sort of deal with it a little bit, because you're not going to find the perfect property unless you build.
Yeah. So many times I've had buyers be in the same situation where they've said to us, hey, look, I'm looking for this sort of property. They come through, they've been early on in the process in the first month, 2 months. They go, oh, it doesn't tick all my boxes. It ticks most of them. I like it, but it doesn't tick all of the boxes. They decided to defer it. They're in the market for another 4, 5, 6 months. The market's just jumped up 10%. Now, from instead of looking at 5-bedroom houses, they're now looking at 3 or 4-bedroom houses because they've waited and hesitated. So my suggestion, if you're a buyer, the biggest mistake I've seen is exactly what Myles said. If it ticks most of the boxes, jump. You're never going to have a house that ticks all the boxes. I've never seen it happen unless you're building.
Awesome. Well, guys, appreciate you sharing
Sweet.
some of the
Thanks
tricks
for
of the
having me
trades, and I hope that helps answer some of the questions, guys. If you're ever looking to buy or sell in the Hills District, Team Buchanan from Manor Real Estate is here to help. Likewise, if you're looking to buy in Sydney, I'm here as a buyer's agent and more than happy to help you guys. So I hope that helped, guys, and we look forward to sending more content your way soon. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you.